Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the mining robots work. The machines moved slowly through the rocky ground of Kepler 442c, a dead planet that had no sun and no life. The air was thin and cold, and Jake had to wear a special suit to breathe, but this was his job. This was what humans did in the galaxy. For over 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled the stars. Their ships were beautiful things made of crystal that could fly faster than light. Their cities floated in space like jewels. The Zephyrians were tall and thin with skin you could see through. They had 4 arms and moved like dancers. Everyone in the galaxy knew they were the smartest and most advanced race. Jake had never seen a Zephyrian up close until 2 years ago when he became captain of the new frontier. The ship was old and ugly compared to Zephyrian vessels. It was made for one thing, digging valuable metals out of dead rocks in space. Commander Veltar was the Zephyrian who watched over their work. He was 7 feet tall and never spoke to the humans unless he had to give orders. Humans were what the Galactic Council called a Class C species. That meant they were only good for hard work with their hands. They could mine, build things, and do jobs that required strong backs and simple minds. The Zephyrians had found Earth 200 years ago when humans were just starting to split atoms and build rockets. The aliens had been kind, the history book said. They gave humans medicine that made them live longer and technology that let them travel to other worlds, but there were rules. Humans could only live on certain planets. They could only do certain jobs. They were not allowed to make weapons or build big ships. Most importantly, they were not allowed to go into the restricted areas of space where the Zephyrians kept their most sacred places. Jake often wondered what was in those restricted zones. The star map showed hundreds of systems marked with red warning signs. Archaeological preservation areas, the Zephyrians called them. Ancient ruins left by their ancestors, too important and dangerous for younger species to visit. The penalty for entering these zones was death. The other humans on Jake's crew never asked questions. There was Lisa Carter, who studied old things and tried to understand what they meant. She was smart but quiet, always reading from her computer tablet. There was Ben Rodriguez, the engineer who kept their mining equipment working. He was good with machines but didn't like to talk much. And there was Maria Johnson, the pilot who could fly their ship through asteroid fields without a scratch. They all knew their place in the galaxy. They had food, shelter, and work. It was more than their great-grandparents had on Earth before the Zephyrians came. Most humans were grateful for what they had, but Jake was different. He had always been curious about things he wasn't supposed to know. As a boy on the colony world of New Boston, he had asked his teachers why humans couldn't build ships like the Zephyrians. Why couldn't they learn the same sciences? Why were they only good for digging and lifting heavy things? Because that's how God made us, his teacher had said. Every species has its gifts. The Zephyrians are builders and thinkers. We are workers and survivors. The galaxy needs both. Now, at 35 years old, Jake still asked questions. But he asked them quietly, to himself, while he watched the mining robots dig deeper into the dead planet below. The robots had been working for 3 days when something strange happened. The scanner on Jake's control panel started beeping in a pattern he had never heard before. The sound was urgent, like a warning, but the screen showed everything was normal. "Lisa, come look at this," Jake called. The archaeologist floated over in the low gravity of the mining ship's bridge. She looked at the scanner readings and frowned. "That's not a mineral deposit," she said. "The energy signature is all wrong." "What do you think it is?" Lisa studied the data for a long time. "I don't know, but it's big, really big. And it's giving off power like it's still working." Ben joined them at the scanner. "Working? That's impossible. This planet has been dead for millions of years. Nothing could still be working down there." But the scanner didn't lie. 3 kilometers below the surface, something was sending out energy signals. The pattern was regular, like a heartbeat. Like something was waiting. Jake looked toward the back of the ship, where Commander Veltar had his private quarters. Zephyrion rarely came to the bridge, but Jake knew he was always listening to their communications. Every word the humans spoke was recorded and sent back to the Empire. "We should report this," Maria said. She was the careful one, always following rules. "Report what?" Jake asked. "We don't even know what it is yet." "We know it's not supposed to be here," Lisa said. "This planet was surveyed by the Zephyrians 50 years ago? They said it was completely dead. No life, no technology, nothing interesting." Jake stared at the scanner. The energy signals were getting stronger as the mining robots dug deeper. Whatever was down there, it was responding to their presence. "Maybe the Zephyrians missed it," Ben said. "Even they make mistakes sometimes." But Jake was thinking about something else. He was thinking about all the restricted zones in space. All the places humans weren't allowed to go. All the questions they weren't allowed to ask. What if they didn't miss it? He said quietly, "What if they knew it was here all along?" The others looked at him with surprise. It was dangerous talk, the kind that could get a human sent to prison or worse. "Jake," Maria warned. "You know better than to say things like that." But Jake couldn't stop thinking. The Zephyrians had surveyed thousands of worlds. They had maps that showed every star system in the galaxy. They had technology that could scan a planet from orbit and tell you what was in the core. How could they miss something that was sending out energy signals? The answer was simple. They didn't miss it, they knew it was here. "We have to tell Commander." "Veltar?" Maria said. "No," Jake said. "Not yet. First we find out what's down there." "That's against regulations," Lisa said. "We're supposed to report any unusual findings immediately." Jake looked at his crew. They were good people, but they had been trained to follow orders without question. They had been taught that humans were not smart enough to make important decisions on their own. "The regulations say we have to report mineral deposits and signs of life," Jake said. This might not be either of those things. It was a weak argument, and they all knew it. But Jake was the captain. In the end, they would do what he decided. "Give me 12 hours, Jake said. "If we can't figure out what it is by then, we'll report it." The others didn't like it, but they agreed. Jake ordered the mining robots to dig faster, to follow the energy signals down into the planet's depths. With each meter they dug, the signals got stronger. And somewhere in the back of Jake's mind, a voice he didn't recognize whispered that they were about to find something that would change everything. The voice was right. The mining robots worked through the night. Jake stayed awake, watching the scanner readings get stronger with each hour. The energy signals were no longer just beeping. They were singing, making sounds that reminded him of music he had never heard before. By morning, the robots had dug 3 kilometers down into the planet's core. That's when they broke through. The first sign was a change in the air pressure readings. The robots had punched through into some kind of empty space. Then the cameras showed something impossible. The mining drill had opened a hole into a vast underground room. "My God," Lisa whispered as she looked at the video feed. "It's huge." The room was bigger than a football stadium. The walls were made of metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces. Symbols that looked almost familiar, but not quite like anything in the galactic databases. "Ben, get the exploration gear ready," Jake ordered. "We're going down." "Jake, wait," Maria said. "We should really tell Commander Veltar about this." But Jake was already putting on his deep mining suit. "After we take a look? If it's just an empty cave, there's nothing to report." Lisa was studying the symbols on her tablet computer. "These markings, they're not like anything I've seen before. Not Zephyrian, not from any known species. But there's something about them that seems familiar." Ben loaded the exploration equipment onto the mining elevator. "The air down there is breathable," he said, checking his instruments. "That's weird. How can there be air in a cave that's been sealed for millions of years?" "Maybe it wasn't sealed." Jake said, "Maybe something down there is still making air." The elevator ride down took 20 minutes. As they descended, the walls around them changed from natural rock to smooth metal. The symbols became more frequent and more complex. By the time they reached the bottom, it was clear they were inside some kind of building. The underground complex was like a city. Hallways stretched in every direction, lit by panels in the walls that gave off a soft blue light. The corridors were the right size for humans to walk through comfortably. The doorways were the right height. Even the stairs were built for legs like theirs. "This is impossible," Lisa said as they walked through the first corridor. "Who could have built this?" Jake ran his hand along the wall. The metal was warm to the touch and seemed to vibrate slightly, as if there was power running through it. "Someone who was built like us," he said. They explored for hours. The complex was enormous, with dozens of levels and hundreds of rooms. Most of the rooms were empty, but some contained equipment that looked advanced beyond anything the humans had ever seen. Machines that hummed with power despite being buried for thousands of years. Computers with screens that showed star maps of the entire galaxy. In the deepest part of the complex, they found the archive room. It was a circular chamber with walls covered in screens and control panels. At the center stood a platform with a chair that looked like it was made for a human to sit in. "Lisa, look at this," Jake called from one of the control panels. The screen showed symbols that were slowly changing, as if the computer was trying to translate them into something they could understand. Lisa studied the symbols for a long time. Then her face went pale. "Jake, I think I know what these are." "What?" "They're human. Ancient human writing. I've seen similar symbols in old Earth artifacts, but these are more advanced. Much more advanced." Ben was examining the machines along the walls. "These computers are still running," he said. "After all this time, they're still working. The technology is incredible." Jake sat in the chair at the center of the room. The moment he touched the armrests, the entire chamber came alive. Screens lit up all around them. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and then, impossibly, a voice spoke in perfect English. "Welcome, descendants of Earth. You have been away for so long." The three humans froze. The voice was coming from speakers hidden in the walls, but it sounded warm and friendly, like an old friend greeting them after a long trip. "Who are you?" Jake asked. "I am the Keeper of Memories," the voice replied. "I have been waiting for your people to return." "It has been 50,000 years since the last humans walked these halls." "That's impossible," Lisa said. 50,000 years ago, humans were living in caves on Earth. We didn't even have writing yet." "That is what you have been told," the voice said. "But it is not the truth? Would you like to see the real history of your people?" The screens around them began to show images. Star maps that showed human settlements across the galaxy. Ships that looked like nothing the humans had ever seen, but somehow familiar. Cities that floated in space, bigger and more beautiful than anything the Zephyrians had built. "This is us?" Ben asked. "These are humans, your ancestors," the voice confirmed. "The builders of the first galactic civilization. The explorers who mapped the stars. The teachers who shared knowledge with younger species as they developed." Jake felt something stirring in his mind, like a memory that was trying to surface. "What happened to them? To us?" "There was a war," the voice said. "A threat from beyond the galaxy that required all species to unite. Your ancestors led the fight, but the cost was terrible. Human civilization was shattered. Most of your people died. The survivors had to hide." The screens showed images of battles in space, of planets burning, of ships fleeing into the dark between stars. It was like watching the destruction of everything they had never known they once were. "The Zephyrians," Lisa said. "They know about this, don't they?" "Some do," the voice replied. "Their leaders have always known the truth. They found human ruins like this one all across the galaxy. They learned from your technology, used your old trade routes, built their empire on the foundation your ancestors created." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "They kept us as slaves. They told us we were primitive." "Not slaves," the voice corrected. "Protected, hidden. Your ancestors made an agreement with the other species. Humanity would withdraw from the galaxy, let others believe they were extinct. In return, when humans were eventually rediscovered, They would be kept safe and allowed to slowly rebuild. But we were never supposed to know the truth, Ben said. The truth was supposed to remain hidden until humanity was ready, the voice said. Until the ancient threat returned and the galaxy needed its first protectors again. Maria had been quiet during the entire conversation, but now she spoke up. Commander Veltar knows we're here. He's been monitoring our communications. He knows. We found something. As if summoned by her words, alarms began to sound throughout the complex. The screens showed images from the surface. Zephyrian ships were landing around the mining site. Soldiers were surrounding the entrance to the underground complex. They're coming, Jake said. Yes, the voice replied. And they are not happy that you have found this place. They will try to destroy it and everyone who has seen it. Why? Lisa asked. Because the time of hiding is over. The ancient threat has returned to the edge of the galaxy. The Zephyrians. No, they cannot face it alone. They need humanity to remember what it once was. The screen showed images of space at the galaxy's edge, dark ships moving between the stars. Ships that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. But they're afraid, the voice continued. Afraid that if humans remember their true history, they will no longer be content to serve as laborers. They will want to reclaim their place as the galaxy's protectors. Jake stood up from the chair. Then we need to get out of here. We need to tell other humans what we found. The Zephyrians will stop you, the voice warned. They have already sent word to their fleet. This entire system will be quarantined. Then we fight, Jake said. With what? Your mining equipment against? Their warships? The voice paused, and Jake could hear something like amusement in its tone. Unless, of course, you would like to see what your ancestors left behind for emergencies like this. The floor beneath them began to move, lowering them to an even deeper level of the complex. As they descended, Jake saw something that made his heart race. Weapons, ships, technology that looked like it could challenge anything the Zephyrians had. Welcome to the armory, the voice said. Your ancestors were always prepared for the day when humanity would need to defend itself again. Above them, the sound of drilling grew louder. The Zephyrians were breaking through, but Jake no longer felt afraid. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. He felt like he was home. The armory was like nothing Jake had ever imagined. Weapons lined the walls, but they didn't look like the crude blasters humans were allowed to carry. These were elegant things that hummed with power and seemed to bend light around them. Ships. Hung in the air without any visible support, their hulls black as space and covered in the same strange symbols they had seen throughout the complex. How long have these been here? Lisa asked, running her hand along the hull of the nearest ship. 50,000 years, the voice replied, waiting for the day when humanity would need them again. That day has come. The sound of drilling from above grew louder. The Zephyrians were cutting through the metal barriers that protected the complex. Jake estimated they had maybe an hour before the soldiers reached them. Can we use these weapons? Ben asked. You are human, the voice said. They were made for you. But first you must understand what you are choosing. If you take up these weapons, if you reveal the truth about your people, there will be no going back. The galaxy will never be the same. Jake looked at his crew. Maria was scared. He could see it in her eyes. Lisa was fascinated by the ancient technology around them. Ben was studying the controls of one of the ships, his engineer's mind already working out how it functioned. What choice do we have? Jake asked. The Zephyrians will kill us to keep this secret. There is always a choice, the voice said. You could surrender? Tell them you found nothing important. They would relocate you to a prison world, but you would live. And let them continue lying to our people? Let them keep humans as slaves while they use our ancestors' technology to rule the galaxy? The Zephyrians are not evil, the voice said. They have kept the agreement made long ago. Humanity was protected, allowed to grow and recover. But they have also grown comfortable with their power. They fear what will happen when humans remember their true nature. The drilling sound stopped. That was not a good sign. Jake knew the Zephyrians had broken through to the upper levels of the complex. "They're inside," Maria whispered. The screens around them showed Zephyrian soldiers moving through the corridors above. They were not the graceful beings Jake had seen in the capital cities. These were warriors, shorter and more muscular than typical Zephyrians, with armor that glowed with energy shields. They moved with purpose, following scanners that led them directly toward the archive room. "How many?" Jake asked. 40 soldiers, the voice replied, plus Commander Veltar and his officers. They have brought weapons designed to destroy this entire complex. Jake picked up one of the weapons from the wall. It was lighter than he expected, and the moment his fingers touched the grip, it came alive. Displays lit up along the barrel, showing him information he somehow understood even though he had never seen the symbols before. "I know how to use this," he said with surprise. "The knowledge is in your blood," the voice explained. "Your ancestors built these weapons for their descendants. The understanding comes naturally to those who carry human genes." Lisa had found a different type of weapon, something that looked like a small rod but buzzed with contained energy. "This is incredible. It's like the weapon is talking to me, telling me what it can do." Ben was already inside one of the ships, his hands moving over controls that should have been completely foreign to him. "I can fly this thing," he said. "I don't know how, but I can feel what every button does." The screen showed the Zephyrian soldiers reaching the archive room. When they found it empty, they began searching more carefully, following the elevator shaft down to the armory level. "They will be here in minutes," the voice said. "You must decide now, fight or surrender." Jake looked at his crew one more time. "I'm tired of being told what humans can and can't do. I'm tired of being treated like a child who can't understand the real world. What about you?" Maria was still scared, but she picked up a weapon from the wall. "If we're going to die anyway, I'd rather die fighting." "We're not going to die," Ben said from the pilot's seat of the ship. "Not with these weapons. Not with what our ancestors left for us." The first Zephyrian soldier appeared at the entrance to the armory. He was tall and imposing in his energy armor, carrying a weapon that could cut through steel. But when Jake pointed his ancient human weapon at the soldier, something unexpected happened. The soldier's armor simply stopped working. The energy shields flickered and died. The weapon in his hands went silent. He stood there, suddenly vulnerable, looking confused and afraid. "What did you do?" the soldier asked in accented English. "Nothing," Jake replied. "This weapon doesn't destroy. It just turns off your technology." More soldiers appeared, but the same thing happened to each of them. Their advanced armor and weapons became useless pieces of metal. They were suddenly just ordinary beings, no more dangerous than humans without their technological advantages. Commander Veltar appeared behind his soldiers. The tall Zephyrian looked at the scene with what Jake recognized as fear. "You do not understand what you are doing," Veltar said. "This technology is too dangerous for your people. It was hidden for good reason." "Hidden from us?" Jake said. "But not from you. You've been using it all along, haven't you? Your ships, your weapons, your entire civilization. It's all built on technology you stole from our ancestors." Veltar's forearms moved in a gesture that Jake had learned meant regret. "We did not steal, we inherited. When your people withdrew from the galaxy, they left behind the infrastructure of civilization. We maintained it, protected it, used it to keep order among the younger species, while keeping us ignorant of our own history. To protect you, and to protect the galaxy. Do you know what your ancestors were capable of? Do you understand the weapons they built, the power they wielded?" Jake felt something stirring in his mind, like memories that weren't his own. Images of battles fought with weapons that could destroy entire star systems, ships that could travel through time, technologies that could reshape matter itself. "I'm beginning to," he said. "Then you know why we kept this knowledge from you. Humanity nearly destroyed the galaxy once. We could not risk it happening again." That's not what happened," the voice interrupted. "Show them the truth." The screens around them lit up with images from the ancient war. But these weren't the same images Jake had seen before. These showed the real enemy, the creatures from beyond the galaxy that had threatened all life. They showed human ships fighting desperately to hold the line while other species evacuated. They showed the final battle where humanity sacrificed its entire civilization to save everyone else. Your ancestors were heroes, the voice said. They gave up everything to protect the galaxy. And now the same enemy has returned. The Zephyrians know this. They have been detecting the approaching ships for months. Commander Veltar's shoulders sagged. It is true. The dark ships have been seen at the galaxy's edge. Our scientists estimate they will reach the outer systems within a year. And you can't stop them, Jake said. That's why you really came here. Not to destroy this place, but to use it. To wake up humanity's weapons and warriors. We hope to control the process. 2. Awaken only what we needed, when we needed it. You have accelerated everything? Ben had been listening while working on the ship's controls. Jake, I'm getting readings from all over the galaxy. Other sites like this one are waking up. The signal we activated here is spreading. What does that mean? Maria asked. It means every hidden human facility in the galaxy is coming online, the voice explained. The Great Awakening has begun. Soon, every human will begin to remember what they truly are. Jake felt the change starting in his own mind. Knowledge that had been locked away for thousands of generations was beginning to surface. He understood. Now, why the Zephyrians had been afraid. Humanity wasn't just another species in the galaxy. They were the galaxy's first children, its protectors and guardians. What happens now? He asked. Now we prepare for war, the voice said. The real war. The one your ancestors died fighting 50,000 years ago. Outside, Jake could hear the sounds of more ships landing. But he was no longer afraid. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly who he was meant to be. He was human. And humanity was waking up. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours of Jake's discovery, every human colony in the galaxy was receiving the same message. The ancient voice spoke to them through communication systems, through their computers, even through the simple radios and mining equipment. Children of Earth, the voice said, the time of forgetting is over. Remember who you are? On the colony world of New Terra, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was working in her laboratory when the message came through. She was a genetic scientist who had spent years studying human DNA, trying to understand why so much of it seemed to serve no purpose. The Zephyrian textbooks called it junk DNA, leftover pieces from humanity's evolution that no longer did anything useful, but when the voice spoke, Amy felt something change inside her mind. The junk DNA wasn't junk at all. It was a library, a vast collection of knowledge that had been locked away and forgotten. As the genetic locks began to open, Amy suddenly understood technologies that should have been impossible. We're not learning, she told her assistant, Peter Williams, as data flowed through her consciousness. We're remembering. The same thing was happening on every human world. Children stopped playing and stared at the sky with eyes that seemed much older. Adults working in factories suddenly understood how to build machines they had never seen before. Farmers looked at their crops and knew how to make them grow in ways that could feed entire star systems. But the most dramatic changes were happening on Earth itself. Captain Tony Martinez was commander of the Earth Defense Station, a small orbital platform that was mostly for show. Humans were not allowed to have real military forces, so the station carried only light weapons and a few patrol ships. Its main purpose was to direct space traffic and handle emergencies. When the awakening began, Tony felt his mind expanding. He understood now that the defense station wasn't what it appeared to be. Hidden beneath its simple exterior were systems that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Shields that could protect whole planets. Manufacturing facilities that could build 1,000 ships in a single day. Sir, his communications officer, Janet Murphy, called out, we're receiving reports from all over the solar system. The asteroid mining stations are transforming. The lunar facilities are coming online. It's like our entire infrastructure was disguised. Tony looked at the tactical display and saw the truth. Humanity's presence in space hadn't been limited to a few simple colonies. They had built a vast network of hidden bases and installations throughout human space. Every mining station, every research facility, every communication relay had been much more than it appeared. "Sir," Janet said, her voice filled with wonder, "I'm getting readings from the outer system. There are ships out there. Hundreds of them. They've been hiding behind the gas giants all this time." The ships were beautiful and terrible. They moved through space like living things, their hulls shifting and adapting as they flew. These were the vessels that humanity's ancestors had built for the final battle against the dark enemy. They had been waiting, sleeping in the cold space between planets, for the day when they would be needed again. But not everyone was happy about the awakening. The Zephyrian Empire was in chaos. Admiral HFY commanded the Third Fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. He had been stationed near human space for years, officially to protect the primitive humans from space pirates and other threats. In reality, he was there to make sure humanity never became a problem. When the first reports came in about humans suddenly displaying impossible knowledge and technology, HFY thought it was some kind of joke. Humans were laborers, nothing more. They barely understood the technology they were allowed to use, much less anything advanced, but the reports kept coming. Human mining ships that suddenly transformed into warships. Human colonies that began broadcasting on frequencies that had been reserved for military use. Most disturbing of all, human civilians who seemed to know things about Zephyrian technology that were supposed to be state secrets. "Admiral," his aide, Lieutenant Kextel, reported, "we're receiving word from the capital. The High Council is meeting in emergency session. They're ordering us to contain the human awakening by any means necessary." HFY studied the tactical reports. The humans had revealed military capabilities that rivaled the Empire's own forces. Ships that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. Weapons that could disable Zephyrian technology without destroying it. Most frightening of all, they seemed to know exactly where every Zephyrian fleet was located. "How is this possible?" HFY asked. "Our intelligence said the humans were decades away from developing advanced technology." "Sir," Kextel said quietly, "our intelligence was wrong. According to these reports, the humans didn't develop this technology. They've had it all along, it was just hidden. The truth was spreading throughout the galaxy now. Other species were learning that the foundation of galactic civilization, the technology and infrastructure they had taken for granted, had all been built by humans long before any of them had achieved SPACEFL, IGHT. The trade routes that connected every major world, established by human explorers 50,000 years ago. The exotic matter that powered faster than light travel, harvested from facilities that humans had built and abandoned. Even the star maps that defined galactic territory were based on surveys conducted when humanity ruled the stars, on the Zephyrian homeworld. High Counselor Vexmara called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the crisis. The elegant chambers where they met had been built using human architectural principles, though none of them had known that until now. "We are facing the collapse of the galactic order," Vexmara announced. "The humans are awakening to their true nature. Our projections suggest that, within days, they will have access to technology that surpasses our own. Then we must stop them," declared Ambassador Thoric of the Kraken Confederation. His species were warriors who had always resented being classified as subordinate to the Zephyrians. "Destroy their worlds before they become a threat." "With what?" Vexmara asked. "Our weapons were designed to fight conventional enemies. Early reports suggest that human technology can simply turn off our defensive systems." "Then what do you propose?" asked Representative Zira of the Centauri Union. Vexmara displayed a star chart showing the galaxy's edge. Dark shapes moved between the stars, getting closer every day. "The ancient enemy has returned." The Devourers are coming back to finish what they started 50,000 years ago. We kept humanity suppressed because we feared their power. But now we need that power to survive." The council chamber fell silent. Every species had legends about the Devourers, the dark creatures from beyond the galaxy who consumed entire civilizations. Most had thought they were myths. "How long do we have?" asked Ambassador Thoric. "Our long-range sensors detect their scout ships entering the Outer Rim territories," Vexmara replied. "The main force will arrive within a year." "And you believe the humans can stop them?" "The humans did stop them," Vexmara said. 50,000 years ago, humanity fought the Devourers to a standstill. But the cost was their entire civilization. They retreated, led us believe they were extinct. All so they could recover and be ready when the enemy returned? On Earth, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a ship that hadn't existed an hour ago. The ancient manufacturing systems had built it around him, creating a vessel that was part machine and part something else. He could feel the ship's thoughts, its eagerness to fly among the stars again. "Captain," Lisa said from her station. She was no longer just an archaeologist. She was the ship's memory keeper, connected to databases that contained the entire history of human civilization. "I'm receiving communications from human ships throughout the galaxy." "The fleet is assembling." "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Thousands," Lisa replied. "Maybe tens of thousands. They've been sleeping in hidden bases everywhere." "Our ancestors were very thorough in their preparations." Ben worked at the engineering station, his hands moving over controls that responded to his thoughts as much as his touch. "Jake, I'm getting readings from the galaxy's edge. The enemy is out there? The same ships our ancestors fought 50,000 years ago. Are we ready for them?" Maria asked from the pilot's seat. Jake felt the ship's systems connecting with his mind, showing him the true scope of humanity's hidden fleet. Ships that could travel faster than light without using the normal jump points. Weapons that could destroy planets or heal them. Technology that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. "We're as ready as we can be," he said. "The question is whether the rest of the galaxy is ready to accept our help." In the distance, Zephyrian ships were approaching. But they weren't coming to fight. They were coming to talk. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire was asking humanity for help. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human leadership was about to begin. The Battle of Earth lasted 3 days and changed everything. Admiral Zexhai arrived with the Third Fleet expecting to negotiate with primitive humans who had somehow found ancient weapons. Instead, he found himself facing a species that had become something entirely different. The human ships moved through space like they were alive. They flowed around the Zephyrian fleet formations, never where the enemy expected them to be. When the Zephyrians fired their crystal weapons, the human ships simply absorbed the energy and grew stronger. "This is impossible," Lieutenant Kextel said as he watched the tactical display. "Their ships are adapting to our weapons faster than we can change frequencies." Admiral Zexhai studied the readings. The human fleet was not fighting like any military force he had ever encountered. They were not trying to destroy the Zephyrian ships. Instead, they were disabling them, turning off their weapons and engines, leaving the crews unharmed but helpless. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through," Zexhai ordered. Jake Morrison appeared on the screen. But he was no longer the simple mining captain who had discovered the ruins on Kepler 442c. The awakening had changed him, filled him with knowledge and confidence that made him seem older and wiser. "Admiral," Jake said politely, "we need to talk." "You are in violation of galactic law," Zexhai replied. "Humans are not permitted to possess military vessels," Jake smiled. "Those laws were made by species who didn't know the truth about humanity. We're not here to fight you, Admiral. We're here to save you." "Save us from what?" "From the same enemy that destroyed our civilization 50,000 years ago. They're coming back, and this time they're stronger. Your fleet, impressive as it is, won't be enough to stop them." The screen changed to show long-range sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. Dark shapes moved between the stars, ships that seemed to bend space around them. They were massive, each one the size of a small moon, and there were hundreds of them. The Devourers, Jake said. They consume entire civilizations, strip planets down to their cores, turn living worlds into dead rocks. They tried to devour our galaxy once before. Humanity stopped them, but the cost was everything we had built. Admiral HFY felt something he had never experienced before, fear, not for himself, but for his entire species. How do we know you're telling the truth? Because your own long-range sensors are detecting them right now, Jake replied. Check? Your deep space monitoring stations. They've been tracking the approaching fleet for months, but your government classified the reports. HFY turned to his communications officer. Contact Deep Space Station 7, request their latest sensor. Logs. The data that came back confirmed Jake's words. The monitoring stations had been detecting the approaching enemy for 6 months. The reports had been sent to the High Council, marked as top secret and buried. Why didn't they tell us? Kextel asked, because they hoped they could wake up humanity's weapons without waking up humanity itself, Jake said. They wanted our technology but not our independence. It doesn't work that way. On the bridge of the human flagship, Lisa Carter worked at stations that connected her mind directly to the ship's computers. The vessel wasn't just a machine. It was a living extension of human will, built from technologies that combine matter and consciousness in ways the galaxy had forgotten. Jake, she said, I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human fleets are emerging from hiding everywhere. The awakening is complete, Jake nodded. How many ships do we have? Thousands, Ben replied from the engineering station. Maybe. More, the manufacturing stations are still building new ones. Every human world is producing vessels using our ancestors' designs. Maria was monitoring communications from the rest of the galaxy. The other species are starting to panic, she reported. Some want to fight us, others want to surrender. A few are asking for our help. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the positions of fleets throughout human space. In just 3 days, humanity had gone from being scattered laborers to commanding the most powerful military force in the galaxy. But he knew that power came with responsibility. Open a channel to all species, he ordered. It's time they heard the truth. The transmission went out to every world in the galaxy. On Zephyrian homeworlds, Kraken military bases, Centauri trading stations, and 1,000 other worlds, people stopped what they were doing to listen. People of the galaxy, Jake began. My name is Jake Morrison. I am human, and I speak for my species. 3 days ago, most of you thought of humans as primitive laborers barely worthy of notice. Today, you see us as a threat to the established order. Both views are wrong. The image changed to show historical records from the ancient archives. The rise of human civilization, the exploration of the galaxy, the first contact with younger species. 50,000 years ago, humanity was the first species to achieve interstellar travel in this galaxy. We explored the stars, mapped the trade routes you still use today, and welcomed younger species as they developed spaceflight. We shared our knowledge, our technology, our friendship. More images showed human cities floating in space, beautiful beyond anything the current galaxy had achieved. Ships that moved like art through the void. Peaceful meetings between humans and the ancestors of modern species. Then the Devourers came. Creatures from beyond our galaxy who existed only to consume and destroy. They had already devoured a dozen galaxies before they reached ours. Humanity led the fight against them, but we could not win alone. The images turned dark. Battles in space where entire star systems burned. Planets stripped bare by the enemy's terrible hunger. Fleets of every species fighting desperately against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The final battle cost us everything. To stop the Devourers, humanity sacrificed its entire civilization. We shattered our own empire, abandoned our worlds, let the galaxy believe we were extinct. The survivors hid on primitive worlds, their memories locked away, waiting for the day when they would be needed again. The transmission showed current. Sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. The dark fleet approaching like a plague of locusts. That day has come. The Devourers have returned, and they are stronger than before, but so are we. The knowledge and technology that humanity developed in the ancient war has been preserved. Our ships, our weapons, our strategies are all designed for one purpose: to protect this galaxy and everyone in it. Admiral Zexhai found himself leaning forward, caught up in the story despite himself. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Jake replied. "We don't want your submission or your gratitude. We want your partnership. The galaxy has grown and changed in 50,000 years. You have built civilizations we could never have imagined. You have technologies and knowledge that we lack. Together, we might have a chance to stop the Devourers permanently." On worlds throughout the galaxy, leaders were making decisions that would determine the fate of their species. Some, like the Kraken Confederation, chose to fight alongside humanity. Others, paralyzed by fear or pride, refused to believe the threat was real, but slowly a new alliance began to form. Ships from dozens of species gathered at rally points that humanity designated. Zephyrian crystal vessels flew alongside human bioships. Kraken fighters escorted Centauri trade vessels converted into support ships. 3 months later, the combined fleet met the Devourers at the galaxy's edge. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Second Great War, a conflict that would determine whether the galaxy survived or became another victim of the endless hunger from beyond the stars. Jake stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, watching alien vessels take their positions in the battle formation. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was truly united. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet. "This is not about human dominance or alien submission. This is about survival. This is about proving that life is stronger than hunger, that creation is more powerful than consumption. Today we fight not as separate species but as one people." The Dark Fleet approached, massive and terrible. But humanity had returned to the stars, and they were not alone. The galaxy's children had come home.